The silence in the room was deafening. Maya sat at the far end of the table, the weight of her family's indifference heavy in the air. Her stepbrother sat confidently, knowing what was to come. The lawyer's voice was just background noise as Maya's mind wandered. She had always been the outsider, the one left on the fringes of this family. And now, as the will was read, nothing was different. Her presence was hardly noticed, and that hurt more than anything else. The lawyer's words hung in the air, so casual, so cold. To Maya Thompson, the old farmhouse and the barn property. Maya didn't expect celebration or surprise, but the complete lack of reaction stung. Her inheritance wasn't a triumph. It wasn't even a conversation. It was just another footnote in the family's story, a name on a document, easily dismissed. The silence that followed her name was louder than any words could ever be. Her stepmother's thin smile spoke volumes. "Well, your father always said you preferred simple things," she said, her voice light but cutting. Maya didn't flinch. She knew this was coming. Years of subtle dismissals had built up to this moment. Her father's will was supposed to mean something, but it was as if it never did. The cold indifference felt worse than any insult. It wasn't cruelty. It was just a reminder. Maya was never truly part of this. Maya folded the document carefully, her movements precise and deliberate. "I'll take it," she said quietly, not because she was unsure, but because she had nothing left to prove. No one expected her to care. No one seemed to realize that it wasn't just land she was inheriting, it was her father's final attempt to reach her. But she didn't expect to be acknowledged. She simply accepted it, because that's what she had always done, quietly, silently, and without protest. As Maya turned to leave, the weight of the silence followed her. She didn't need confrontation or pity. She just needed to leave, to escape the suffocating atmosphere of indifference. The cold air outside felt like a welcome relief. The world hadn't changed, and neither had she. She had always been on the outside looking in. The inheritance wasn't a gift. It was just another reminder that she didn't belong. She would carry this burden silently, just like everything else. The silence in her car was deafening as Maya replayed the events of the day. The will reading, the indifferent faces, the family that had never truly embraced her. She had expected anger, maybe even bitterness, but instead, she was met with cold silence. It was as if she didn't matter at all. But what hurt the most wasn't the dismissal. It was the realization that the family she had hoped for never really existed. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, her thoughts drifting back to when she was 8. Standing in the same barn, her father had placed a handful of soil in her palm. The memory was vivid, the warmth of the day, her father's calm voice. Back then, she thought he was just teaching her about the land. But now, she wondered if it was more than that. Was he preparing her for something deeper? Her father's words still echoed in her mind. "Surface tells you nothing." Maya remembered how she had thought he was simply talking about farming. But now, those words held a new meaning. She realized that he wasn't just teaching her about the soil, he was teaching her about life. The world wasn't as simple as it seemed. It was full of layers, and she had only just begun to understand what he meant. Maya had always thought her father's lessons were just practical advice. But now, with the weight of the will in her hands, she wondered if he had been teaching her something much deeper. The surface of things, he had said, tells you nothing. She had spent so many years resenting him, believing he had abandoned her. But perhaps he had been quietly preparing her for this moment, for the truth she was only just beginning to uncover. As the memory of her father's words settled in, Maya felt the weight of her resentment begin to lift. She had misunderstood him for so long. It wasn't that he had favored his new family, he had trusted her. He had been preparing her for something bigger, something she couldn't see at the time. The realization hit her like a wave. Her father's silence had always been a lesson, a gift she hadn't understood until now. Maya stood at the entrance of the barn, her eyes scanning the worn structure before her. The barn wasn't magical, just tired, its wood warped, nails rusted, and time had left its mark. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but this wasn't it. This wasn't the grand inheritance she thought she would receive. But still, she couldn't ignore the pull to step inside. She couldn't leave it this way, not after everything her father had left her. With a slow, hesitant step, Maya entered the barn. The air was stale, thick with dust and memories. She didn't come searching for secrets, not yet. Instead, she started cleaning, pushing the dirt aside, restoring the place bit by bit. The barn, her inheritance, wasn't grand, but it needed care. It needed attention, just like everything else that had been neglected in her life. As she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying to restore more than just this building. Hours passed, and Maya found only remnants of the past: old tools, ledger books yellowed with time, a broken lantern. There was nothing extraordinary here, nothing that screamed treasure or mystery. She felt a slow, creeping doubt settle in her chest. Had her father left her something of value, or had this all been practical? Was this just another reminder that she didn't belong? She couldn't help but wonder if she had been imagining something deeper. As the light from the setting sun grew softer, Maya leaned against a wooden beam, her hand brushing against something familiar. The carved initials, RT+M, stood out faintly in the wood. It was a connection to the past, to her father. But what did it really mean? Her father had always left subtle marks, things that didn't scream for attention. Maybe this was his way of telling her that some things were built quietly, without fanfare, but still meant to last. Maya pressed her palm against the beam and remembered her father's words. Surface tells you nothing. She had been looking with her eyes, expecting the answers to appear in front of her, but it was the deeper layers she needed to uncover. It wasn't just about the barn or what was inside it. It was about the lessons her father had tried to teach her. Maya realized that to truly understand him, she had to listen, not with her eyes, but with her heart. Maya moved slowly across the barn, taking in every detail, every corner. The place felt abandoned, forgotten, just like the memories of her father. She had expected something more from this inheritance, but the barn felt empty, as if it had been left to collect dust. Yet something about it, something about the way it had been left, made her feel like it was waiting for her to discover something hidden beneath the surface. As she walked, Maya's boot pressed against the floor, and there it was, a subtle shift. It wasn't hollow, it wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to make her stop. The resistance felt different here, as if something was hidden underneath. Her instincts told her it wasn't just the barn creaking with age. There was more, something that had been placed here carefully, waiting for someone to notice. Maya crouched down, running her fingers along the wood. This board was too tight, too perfectly aligned. Her father had always been meticulous about fixing things, and this wasn't right. She tried to lift it, but nothing happened. It almost felt like a trap. She was about to give up, but something inside told her to keep going. She wasn't wrong. 2 screws were different, newly placed, and it was enough to make her pulse quicken. Her fingers trembled as she unscrewed the nails, her heart racing with anticipation. With each twist of the screw, she could feel the tension in the air. She wasn't just opening a floorboard. She was opening a part of her father's past, a secret he had left for her. The board creaked and lifted slowly, and when it did, there was no treasure, no jewels, just a plain envelope and a small key, tucked away with care. The envelope was plain, almost too simple, and the key was small but important. Maya's fingers brushed against the wax seal as she held it, feeling the weight of her father's intentions. This wasn't a treasure chest. It wasn't about money. It was about trust. The letter inside spoke of a legacy her father had quietly built for her, one she never knew existed. This was no accident. She wasn't just his daughter. She was his heir, carefully protected all along. Maya's fingers trembled as she broke the wax seal and unfolded the plain envelope. It wasn't a dramatic letter, no grand revelations, just a quiet piece of paper. But as she read, the weight of each word grew heavier. Her father's handwriting was familiar, but the message was something she wasn't prepared for. It wasn't about inheritance. It was about something much deeper. She realized in that moment this wasn't a simple will. It was a carefully crafted message from a father she'd misunderstood for years. Maya's heart raced as she read her father's words, the letter speaking truths she had never imagined. "You spent years thinking I chose them over you," he had written. The pain she'd carried for years suddenly felt like a lie. He had let her believe the worst, all for her protection. Her father's silence, the distance, had never been cruelty. It had been a shield, and now, reading these words, Maya understood. The anger she'd carried was built on misunderstandings. The words hit Maya harder than she anticipated. Her father had been planning for her to take control of everything all along. The company, the legacy. He hadn't abandoned her. He had set up something for her, something far more powerful than she could ever have imagined. His quiet actions had been more than mere indifference. They were calculated and protective. In that moment, the resentment she had carried for years started to fade, replaced with something she wasn't prepared for, gratitude. As Maya read the letter, she realized the power her father had quietly built for her, layered with trusts and voting rights. She hadn't understood it before, but now everything became clear. Her father's silence wasn't a sign of neglect. It was his way of preparing her, ensuring that when the time came, she'd be ready. She had always felt abandoned, but he had always trusted her. He had protected her in ways she never recognized until now. The love he had shown was quieter, but deeper than anything she could have imagined. Maya carefully folded the letter, her mind racing. She hadn't just inherited property, she had inherited responsibility. Her father's trust, his careful planning, and the key to her future were all contained in those words. She had misunderstood him for so long, but now everything fell into place. The weight of the letter wasn't just in the inheritance it described, but in the love and trust he had placed in her. Maya finally understood. Her father hadn't left her with nothing. He had left her with everything. Maya's footsteps echoed as she walked into Harris and Cole, the weight of what was to come hanging in the air. The building was old, but the sense of power was unmistakable. It wasn't just about the legal documents or the inheritance. This was the moment she would take control of everything her father had left for her. She had walked in with uncertainty before, but today was different. Today, she was walking in with purpose, knowing she was about to step into the life she never realized was hers all along. Mr. Bennett didn't seem surprised when Maya arrived. There was a knowing calm in his eyes, a sense that this meeting had been inevitable. He wasn't the type to waste words, but he understood the weight of this moment for Maya. As he greeted her, his professional demeanor didn't hide the respect he had for her. The handshake was firm, the nod brief, but it was clear this was no ordinary meeting. It was a transition, a shift in power that Maya was only beginning to understand. Sitting across from Mr. Bennett, Maya felt the weight of the documents in front of her. There was no drama in the air, just a quiet intensity. As he handed her the papers, he didn't have to say much. The documents spoke for themselves. Maya's eyes scanned them, the truth sinking in. The power her father had quietly passed to her, the responsibility she had inherited, it was all there, in black and white. For the first time, she felt the full force of her father's planning and foresight. As Maya looked down at the papers, the realization hit her. This wasn't just about land or cars or houses. It was about the company, the power behind everything her father had built. He had given her the ability to take control, to shape the future, even though she hadn't seen it at the time. She had always felt like an outsider, left in the shadows, but now she understood. Her father's quiet trust in her, the decisions he made without her knowing, were his way of preparing her for this moment. Maya felt the weight of Mr. Bennet's words. "Power belongs to those who understand silence," he had said. She had always resented her father for his quiet nature, for the distance he kept. But now, as she processed everything, she realized that silence was his way of ensuring she would be ready when the time came. He hadn't abandoned her. He hadn't chosen another family. He had trusted her to take over, to carry on what he had started. And now, in this moment, Maya knew she was ready to step into that role. By the time the family board meeting began, Maya was no longer just a bystander in her own life. The papers were in place, the legal structure set. The moment had come for her to step forward. As the lawyers spoke, her stepmother's attorney shifted uneasily. Maya didn't need to make a scene or slam the documents. The truth was already there, quietly laid out. When the senior counsel announced that she was now the controlling authority, Maya didn't feel triumph. She felt the weight of the responsibility. This was hers now. Maya sat at the head of the table, her heart pounding in the quiet tension of the room. The familiar faces of her stepmother, stepbrothers, and the company's advisors filled the space, but for the first time, she felt like she belonged. This was no longer a fight for acceptance. This was her moment to take control. The boardroom, once a place of exclusion, now felt like her arena. The weight of the inheritance and her father's legacy settled on her shoulders, and she was ready to claim it. Tom's words stung, but they didn't shake her. His casual tone, the condescension, were all part of the same script, the script he had been following for years. He thought he could provoke her, make her doubt herself, but this time it was different. Maya's eyes met his, steady and unwavering. She wasn't here to argue. She wasn't here to prove anything. She was here to lead, and no amount of his arrogance was going to stop her from taking what was rightfully hers. Maya's calmness in the face of Tom's provocation was more powerful than any retort could have been. Her voice was steady, her words clear and confident. She wasn't going to be intimidated. She wasn't going to cower. "I'm not here to argue," she said. "I'm here to make this company thrive." For the first time, she spoke not out of anger but out of clarity. The company needed change, and Maya was the one who could make it happen. She was done being an outsider. Elaine's words, sharp and dismissive, were nothing new. Maya had spent her whole life feeling like the afterthought, the one who didn't belong. But this time, something inside her clicked. She didn't feel the sting of rejection. Instead, she felt an overwhelming sense of calm. Elaine's disbelief only solidified it. Maya was different now. She wasn't the little girl who had been pushed aside. She was the woman who had claimed her place. "You don't get it," Maya thought. "But I do." Maya stood up, feeling the weight of her decisions settle into her bones. The room, frozen in shock, seemed to fade away as she walked toward the window. Outside, the city stood tall, much like her now. There was no grand speech, no dramatic gestures. She didn't need to explain herself. The company, her legacy, it all lay before her. "I'm here to fix what you've broken," she said. And with that, she took her place, not as a victim, but as a leader. The world was now hers to shape. The room didn't explode with reaction. Instead, something quieter happened, a shift you could feel more than see. Maya sat calmly at the head of the table, her hands resting lightly as if this were just another meeting. But everyone sensed it. The balance had changed. For years she had been the quiet observer, the one people overlooked. Now the room moved around her presence differently. No one said it out loud, yet it was clear. Authority wasn't being claimed. It was being recognized. When the senior counsel spoke, his voice was steady, almost routine, but the words carried weight. He explained the trust structure, the voting rights, the authority now resting with Maya. Papers shuffled softly as advisors absorbed the information. Her stepbrothers exchanged uneasy looks, realizing this wasn't temporary. This wasn't symbolic. It was real. Maya listened quietly, not reacting, not celebrating. She understood something they were only beginning to grasp. This moment wasn't about winning. It was about responsibility. Across the table, Elaine watched carefully, her expression measured but searching. She asked her question slowly, as if testing the reality of what she was hearing. For years she had understood how influence worked, how control was maintained. But now the ground felt unfamiliar. Maya met her gaze without tension, without defensiveness. There was no anger in her eyes, only calm clarity. And that calm unsettled the room more than any confrontation ever could. Because quiet certainty leaves little room for argument. When Maya finally spoke, her voice was gentle, almost reflective. She didn't claim foresight or credit. She simply acknowledged the truth, that her father had seen what others hadn't. The words hung in the air, simple yet powerful. In that moment, the story shifted from inheritance to intention. She wasn't stepping into power by force. She was stepping into something carefully prepared long before anyone realized. And everyone in the room felt the quiet weight of that realization. As the meeting moved forward, the tone changed subtly. Conversations became more deliberate, more respectful. Advisors addressed Maya directly, waiting for her input before continuing. Even the smallest exchanges carried a new awareness. She listened more than she spoke, absorbing details, asking thoughtful questions. It wasn't dominance that defined her presence, it was steadiness. The company's future was being discussed, but beneath every word was a shared understanding that leadership had quietly settled into new hands. When the meeting ended, people gathered their papers quietly, as if leaving a space that felt different now. Maya remained still for a moment, taking in the calm that followed. Across the room, Elaine watched with a thoughtful expression, no longer dismissive, simply observant. The shift was complete, not dramatic, but undeniable. Maya understood then that her father hadn't created a moment of surprise. He had created continuity. And standing there, she felt something she hadn't expected. Not triumph, but peace. Maya sat across from department heads, quietly listening to their feedback. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush them. She let them speak, fully, honestly, as she took note of every word. Maya understood the importance of patience. After years of decisions being made without her input, she now had the chance to understand the real issues. This wasn't about asserting control. It was about gathering the information needed to lead thoughtfully. She was building trust, the foundation of leadership that couldn't be rushed. As Maya pored over the financial reports, the numbers became clearer. On the surface, everything seemed fine. Profits were high, assets were strong. But beneath the gloss, Maya saw the cracks, aggressive short-term strategies, unsustainable decisions that had put the company's future at risk. This wasn't the legacy her father wanted for her. It was her responsibility to restore stability. This wasn't about making fast money. It was about safeguarding what truly mattered. And Maya knew the work to rebuild had to start now, before it was too late. Tom stepped into her office with hesitation, clearly expecting confrontation, but Maya's calm demeanor disarmed him. "I thought you'd come in and start firing people," he said, but Maya's response was measured. She wasn't there to dismantle what he had built. She was there to rebuild it. Her words weren't harsh, but they carried authority. "Easy isn't always right," she told him. The tension in the room shifted. Maya wasn't there to tear down. She was there to lead. Slowly, Tom realized that this wasn't a takeover. This was a transformation. Elaine's eyes followed Maya after the strategy session, a quiet respect settling between them. "You're running this differently," she observed. Maya didn't react defensively or proudly. She simply nodded, acknowledging that she was. It wasn't about changing everything overnight. It was about making sustainable, thoughtful decisions that would have a lasting impact. The shift in her approach wasn't lost on Elaine. Maya wasn't there for revenge or to claim victory. She was there to ensure the company's survival. And in that moment, Elaine realized the weight of that change. Maya walked through the operations floor of one of the company's oldest facilities, watching the workers carefully. She wasn't there to micromanage, but to observe. She saw the quiet pride in their work, the effort they put in day after day. There was a sense of respect between her and the employees, an acknowledgement that leadership had shifted. She didn't need applause or grand gestures. She needed results. And in this moment, she saw the beginning of a collective shift, the first real sign that the company's future could be in capable hands. That evening, Maya sat alone on the farmhouse porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in warm hues. The barn stood in the distance, no longer a symbol of neglect, but of legacy. For the first time, Maya wasn't running from her past. She was accepting it. Her father had built this, and now she was continuing it. The company, the land, the quiet trust, they were all hers to shape. As the last light of the day faded, Maya knew that change wasn't about grand gestures. It was about quietly doing the work and letting that work speak for itself. The meeting came to an end, and Maya remained seated, her hands resting calmly in front of her. The tension in the room had faded, replaced by a quiet acknowledgement of her authority. For the first time, she felt fully in control. She wasn't the outsider anymore. She was part of this world, but more importantly, she was shaping it. No one spoke of it, but the respect was there. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Maya had finally stepped into her power, and the company was beginning to feel the shift. As Maya walked out of the boardroom, the weight of everything that had happened settled on her shoulders. The hallway, once a symbol of exclusion, now felt like her path to the future. She passed the same door where she had once been left out, now walking through it with purpose. She wasn't just following a path, she was creating it. The world around her had changed. The balance had shifted, and she was now standing firmly in the center of it, ready to lead and make her mark. Standing outside the building, Maya looked out over the city that had always been a symbol of success and power. But now it felt different. She was no longer just an observer. She was part of the landscape. She had stepped into her own power, reshaping the world around her, just as she had always dreamed. There were no more doubts, no more questions. Maya had found her place in this world, and she was ready to take it. The horizon stretched before her, full of endless possibilities. Driving back to the farmhouse, Maya felt a sense of peace wash over her. This place, once a symbol of uncertainty and questions, now felt like home. As the car pulled up the driveway, the weight of her decisions, her leadership, and her journey all came together. The barn, the fields, and the land that had once seemed so distant were now part of her future. She wasn't running from her past anymore. She was embracing it, ready to build something new, something real, with everything she had learned. Sitting on the porch, Maya watched as the sunset painted the sky in vibrant hues. The world felt vast, yet she was grounded in the moment, her thoughts clearer than ever. This place, her father's legacy, was now part of her story. She wasn't just inheriting property, she was inheriting responsibility. For the first time, Maya felt truly at peace, knowing that she was living up to what her father had prepared for her. The sunset wasn't just the end of the day, it was the beginning of something bigger, something she was ready for. Maya's phone buzzed, A message from her executive team updating her on the progress of the company. The numbers, the reports, and the plans were all coming together. But it wasn't the success that made her smile. It was the realization that she had done it her way, quietly, steadily, with integrity. She had led by listening, by understanding, and by making decisions that were in the company's best interest, not for show or short-term gain. This wasn't just a victory, it was a shift in how she approached leadership and life. Maya looked at the horizon one last time, the peaceful landscape reminding her that the work ahead was just as important as what had been accomplished. The journey wasn't over. She was just getting started. If you've found yourself at a crossroads, unsure of what's next, remember this. Real change starts within. Don't wait for someone else to lead you. Take control, trust yourself, and start your journey today. Leadership isn't about proving others wrong. It's about staying true to yourself and building the future you want, step by steady step. And if this journey has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that empower you to take the first step.